The important thing to remember when dividing with decimals is that you are to move the divisor's decimal after the ones place and move the dividend's decimal the same amount of place values, then divide. All right, now let's figure out what that means. First of all, there's some key vocabulary that we need to remember. We have a dividend and a divisor. So in the division expression you see here, the dividend is that first number or your starting amount. So it's 5 and 525 thousandths divided by the divisor or the number that's going into it, 4 and 25 hundredths. So the dividend is divided by the divisor. All right, so we want to make the divisor be a whole number. So I'm going to write a little note. Make it whole. Okay, so right now it's 4 and 25 hundredths. We want to make it a whole number, which means that we are going to be increasing it by a scale by 100 times that amount. So we're moving the decimal place over 1, 2 place values in order to make it a whole number. Now, if I do that to my divisor, in order to come out with an accurate quotient, which is the answer to a division problem, I need to do the same thing over here to my dividend. So if this got moved over 2 places, I need to move this decimal place over 1, 2 places. Now, to illustrate why that is, I want to show you a series of problems over here. Okay, so we're going to start here with something very simple, a more simplistic problem. So if I have 8 cookies and I'm dividing them amongst 2 people, me and my friend, we're each going to get 4 cookies. All right, now what if I were to increase both of these by a factor of 10? So instead of have 8 divided by 2, what if I had 80 divided by 20? I have 80 cookies and I'm dividing them amongst 20 of my friends. We're still going to get 4 cookies each. So it didn't really matter that these are now 10 times greater because they're both increased by the same scale factor. The quotient remains the same. Well, what if I increase it again? 800 divided by 200. I'm still going to get a quotient of 4. 800 cookies divided amongst 200 people. Everyone is still going to get 4 cookies each. All right, what if I were to, starting with that same one here, what if I were to decrease it by a scale factor of 10, meaning I divide by those each? So now I have 8 tenths divided by 2 tenths. I'm still going to get 4. What if I were to be 8 hundredths divided by 2 hundredths? Still going to get 4. So when you are increasing or decreasing your divisor and your dividend by scale factors of 10 or 100 or whatever, and you do the same thing to the other one, you're going to get the same answer, which is why and how this algorithm works. Okay, so let's go ahead and set it up using our long division methods. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move that decimal. All right, now here's something that students often do is they will accidentally put the dividend on the outside of our division bar because they see it in the front, so they think it goes in the front, but it doesn't. Remember that the dividend is the number that goes inside that fraction bar. So 5.525 goes inside, and the divisor 4.25 goes outside. So now I'm going to move that decimal. I want to make this one a whole number. So I'll go ahead and highlight that, make it whole. So I'm going to move it over 1, 2 places. And in order to match, so I get the same, an accurate quotient, I'm going to move this over 1, 2. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that decimal in its new place directly up. Now, this is why it's very important that you use that graph paper to keep track of those columns. Next thing I'm going to do is the long division. So I'm going to go through all of those steps. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite those here so we don't get confused by all of the little arrows, now that I'm modeling it. All right, So now I'm going to take this whole number. How many times can 425 go into 5? Can't do it. Some people like to make a little X to keep track of that. That's fine, but you don't have to. How many times does 425 go into 55? Can't do it. You put a little X there if you want. How many times does 425 go into 552? Okay, now I can do that. That's going to be 1 time. And make sure that you keep it right above there, right in that nice column. 1 times 425 is, of course, 425. And then I'm going to find the difference there. 2 take away 5, can't quite do it. So I'm going to go ahead and regroup. And I'm going to use a different color so you can see it. 4, and we've got a 12. And then that's going to be a 7. 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 4 is going to be 1. And the next thing I do is I bring down that 5. 425 into 1275, that is going to be 3. And along the way for this long division, you might need to do a little guess and check. So 3 times 5 is going to be 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 more is 7. 3 times 4 is going to be 12. There, find the difference. There we go. So 0 is the remainder. So the quotient is going to be 1 point. There we go. And then here's the reminder at the end. Use the dividends decimal place for your quotient. We already took care of that by bringing the decimal place up there. So that's kind of how you do that long division. Now, I'd like to model for you a couple others. So please also record this in your math journal next to where you're planning on putting those decimal guided